Hi, I want to talk about reparenting and lineage support. A lot of people in my field talk about reparenting from the position of the self, that the self has to reparent the inner world. And this is radically true, right? But one thing that I think a lot of people who would talk about this might be missing is in cases of very complex trauma, the only model for parenthood is punitive. And what that can look like in the inner world is that we actually perpetuate narcissistic abuse toward the self. So read Earn Your Luck if you haven't already, but there is an element of, if you were raised to kind of learn to scratch at yourself, to rid yourself of yourself because yourself didn't fit into the world, it's very likely that your model for parenthood did that to you. And there's this phenomenon that I've seen, and this is why I actually don't work in traditional psychology systems at this point, because I would see people come into psychiatric units and they were not insane. They were a cog in an insane system. And it doesn't excuse their participation in the insanity. But when it was clear to me that a lot of people who were coming that resonated with me were coming from wildly, they were experiencing the dichotomy of hollowness in their family system. And what I mean by that is a lot of them experienced having the perfect parent, but the perfect parent is a trap, because the perfect parent is a role that most perfect parents play. And they focus so much on parenting that they forget how to person. And to be a good parent requires not a hollow shell of a perfect role, but to be a person and simultaneously a parent, which is a fine line. But what happens a lot is there will be the perfect parent who will throw money at a situation or throw therapy at a situation. And they look like they're being the perfect parent because they're in that role. And they go, okay, well, look, I'm doing what the doctor says. I'm doing what this person says. But they're not actually necessarily willing to sit and listen to what their own people say because it doesn't match the outer world or their own experience. So I recently told somebody that I wouldn't work with their daughter because I knew that, it was a situation in which this person wasn't going to be willing to sit with their daughter the way that they wanted me to. And that's not repair. That outskirts the same, and I'm not saying therapy's not great, right? But I don't do that work in the sense that I can see sometimes when parents are throwing therapy at a situation and they call it support, but the child is going, I don't want to need therapy. All I'm asking is for you to just see me and let me be myself, right? So then take this a generation deeper, and this is something I've seen over and over and over again, and I can use my own experience to speak on it, but when the child that you raised, because here's the thing, even as an adult person, you can reparent your adult children, and that will have more of an effect on your grandchildren than you trying to save your grandchildren from the effects of your parenting. And what I mean by this is I see a lot of grandmothers who will say, well, I didn't, basically get it right with this kid, obviously, so let me go save the kid that they have from them. And that is the same thing as this, this kind of bypassing by throwing something at it, by not really addressing what is going on, by saying, okay, let's go get a therapist, or let's outskirt this situation by bypassing my actual child. So I work with people who struggle to feed their kids, but have parents that pay for them to take horseback riding lessons and things like that. It's wildly, it's literally as if the system says, well, your parent is a problem, which perpetuates more of the system. And this is what my mom has done to my kids for years. She'll say, your mother doesn't feed you. Your mother doesn't bathe you, because I feed them fruits and vegetables. She thinks that I'm neglecting them. I don't bathe them because I don't believe in taking a bath every single night when they're children. It's ridiculous. So she throws out still all of these things that I'm not, which perpetuates this ridiculous belief in the underbelly of the subconscious in my lineage that my children need to be saved from me. And what I wish that she would understand, and what I do at this point understand, as I'm sandwiched between being a mother and a daughter, is that my system would be better benefited from my mother working to reparent herself and reparent me than saving my children from me and the effects of her parenting. So she carries on this complex of like, you know, I'm the problem and somebody needs to be saved from me because the system says I need to be saved from myself or something, which is ridiculous. It's one of those systems that will, you know, make you sick and tell you that you're weak for being sick. And when you start to outgrow that sickness, they'll blame you somehow. You know, it's funny. I shattered my wrist when I was 10 years old. And my family loves to talk about health problems, right? So I'm like, okay, well, I'm gonna share this information that I just got, that, you know, they told me I'd lose mobility in my wrist, but actually my bones are fusing together. And that's why it hurts like crazy right now. And she's like, oh, it's probably because of all the drugs you've done in your life. And I'm like, are you seriously blaming me for breaking my arm when I was 10? And she's like, you were 8. I was not 8, right? So there's always, it's my fault. Everything will always go back to it's my fault. So in the role of, you know, her being a perfect parent, which she, from the outside looking in, legitimately probably was, and even from her background, for being a Germanic mother, for being a woman in her time space, right? She disciplined me, she fed me, she clothed me, and she made sure that I was in different activities, even though I never wanted to be in any of them. And she shamed me repetitively for not being able to function in any of them because none of them were suited for me, because I was never actually seen, right? If she would have put me in like a poetry class or something when I was 10, different story. Whatever. I am grateful for the opportunities. And nobody can understand what it's like to be so seen and so unseen. Like you're under a microscope constantly, and then you have to perform to be this thing that you're actually not. And the taxing of the body to be that thing is insane. So a lot of parents will throw my mom would make my clothes for me, right? She would spend her day cleaning the house for me. And parents think, oh my God, I do everything for you. But the truth is, kids do everything for their parents. Most children, even if they struggle to do it, are trying their damnedest to be exactly what their parents want them to be. That's what they're programmed to do. And then we have these parents that go, I gave everything for you. I sacrificed everything for you. And they're playing this hollow shell of a role. And they call it parenting, but they're lacking the personhood, and that creates a wobble because they're not in there as a person to even be the parent. They're just in this role of a parent. And then they try to perpetuate that on their grandchildren because they only know themselves in a role, and they don't necessarily have the identity to back up the selfhood of the person that they'll inevitably have to get back to becoming once the role of the perfect parent is no longer necessary. Because if you try to keep, playing this role, and this is a lot of women come to me at this phase where they go, okay, I'm no longer needed, and I have legitimately no idea who I am, because I was the perfect parent. I did it all right. And they probably did it all right, and it was all wrong for the kid that they were doing it for, right? Because there can be There's the person that will sit at the end of the bed with the kid who will be able to hold space for them where they are and be with them as the people that they are without expecting perfection. And there's another parent who will not sit at the end of the bed and who will be downstairs calling the therapist and saying, hey, somebody needs to help my kid. Both should be there. But when one is there and it is hollow and it is throwing money at the situation, it's throwing things at the situation, that's when people feel wildly hollow themselves. And they're also simultaneously trying to ironically be exactly what the parent wants them to be. And they wish they didn't need all these outer things thrown at them to be it. So I just want to say that if you are a woman going through this, or a person going through this, or even if you're the mother in the situation that secretly thinks, okay, I gotta kind of go save my grandbabies from my kids, that is more of the same kind of toxic generational trauma and I'm grateful because mine is overt, so I can see it. Most people's is covert. But if you're trying to save your grandkids from your own children, you're better off reparenting yourself in such a way that you can accept your own imperfections, and then that will energetically be felt upon your children, who deserve your sight as much as your grandchildren do, right? Because I see it all the time. They just bypass. My mother does it. I see it in other family systems. Bypass the person that they're talking to that is their actual child, and they are done with that, right? Like, I already parented, I failed basically, and I'm projecting an idea of failure onto this person, but I'm telling them that I actually like support them and love them. But really underneath, there's an element of a sense of failure that their child feels. So, perpetuating that cycle, it doesn't actually help anybody. So step by step, if there's always going to be a gap, if that continues to happen in lineages. And what we want is to really pass on step by step, so people don't have to claw their way out of that gap for the next generation to figure out for themselves. We want to pass on a new frequency of parenthood, and that comes with a sense of self-acceptance. It comes with a sense of other acceptance, of seeing your children where they are and for what they are without pathologizing them for being that thing, right? And on the other end of this, as that child, I know how to become myself so much and I know that the effect of that self, it creates a new position in the system in which you become supported in the self. But when you wobble in the self, you're a target, right? You're kind of a target in that system because there's a gap. So we want to pass on information by not bypassing the people that we really should be passing it on to and looking at them like they're a lost cause. That just doesn't make sense, right? So there's two sides of this. And when one shifts, the other shifts. Like if you're the child and you become more of the self, the parent starts to see you more distantly because you're not that enmeshed thing that they think that you are. And then what's especially fun is when you're validated by the external because you become more yourself, which never happens until you become yourself. And then those people who didn't validate that start to validate it because they see, oh, other people are validating this, right? And then there's the other side of this from the mothering perspective is mother your children. Do not negate their role as parents by trying to be the mother or be the grandparent or whatever that comes to save these grandchildren. Your children, saving your children, so to speak, by actually being available for them as a person instead of the perfect parent will be better for your grandchildren if you actually love them. It'll be better for your grandchildren because it will have a trickle-down effect that doesn't bypass anybody in the system. And that person who's bypassed will always be screaming. And that archetype will always show up in the lineage. So these things get passed down very covertly. I'm hoping to help you make it overt so that you can see it. Because we have to reparent ourselves for sure. But in that process, I mean, I have a 16-year-old and an 18-year-old. I, in my own ways, am aware of the frequencies that I have been entrenched in. And now, even though they are adults, I reparent them. I seek to be the person that I was not for myself and for them. And if they had children, I would not want to bypass who my children are and act like their children needs to be saved by them. My work is to raise up my children enough that they don't need their children saved from them, right? Whether they're 18, whether they're 3, or whether they're 45, right? So I hope this is helpful. You have the potential to reparent your children at any age. And you actually have the potential to be reparented even if your parents are dead. That is an interesting frequency to work with, right? So everything is possible, but you have to see the patterns so you stop living into the patterns. Okay? Hope this was helpful. Have a great day. Bye. Oh, I want to say something. You see this outfit? This is an Aria Lautner jumpsuit. Oh my God. I can't even. Look at this. So I have thrown everything in my wardrobe legitimately pretty much out. And I have one for every different day of the week, a different color. And in the fall and in the winter, I'm just going to throw things over them. And in the summer, I have serious texture issues. And I don't like generally wearing clothes. I don't like, it feels like the sounds of balloons popping if things are like close to my armpits or something. I don't love clothes. And I feel like even in the summer, these are so breathable. Look at this. And they're perfect. They just fit perfectly. So I'm going to put a link below if you are somebody who has texture issues like me. Literally on a level of function and fashion, this article of clothing has saved my life and actually fills me, even though I took out my whole wardrobe to put only these in. Oh my God, nothing has been more satisfactory for my sense of skin, my sense of like safety in my skin, and the comfort that I feel. It's organic bamboo. It's an awesome company. I have loved it every step of the way. I'm not getting paid for this. I believe I get like rewards points if you buy this outfit, but you are going to want it. They have great BOGO sales. Serious game changer when I said I need something that's actually me, and I'm going to invest in what that feels like. One of the best investments in the world for me, because I actually feel comfortable in my own skin with clothing on. So yeah, if you have texture issues, you are gonna love this jumpsuit. You can wear it for anything. I've worn it to weddings. I wear it to freaking the grocery store. Like it's my new me, right? So, all right. I will talk to you guys later. Have a great day.